Diagramming on the LSAT can sometimes feel like assembling furniture with instructions written in hieroglyphics. Complex, slightly befuddling, and oh so critical in piecing together the bigger picture. So, when the challenge lies in putting pen to paper, how do you go from scratching your head to sketching out logic with ease? The truth of the matter is, like many worthwhile endeavors, mastering diagramming takes practice. Stop making that face. Stop it. I know it would be great if we could get better at diagramming using the old one weird trick, but good old-fashioned, nose to the grindstone practice is the gross medicine we have to take if we want to get an amazing LSAT score. But aside from writing if-thens and contrapositives until your eyes droop, there are some concrete things you can do to improve your ability to translate and work with diagrammable statements. The first, and most important, is recognition. The LSAT is a test about pattern recognition as much as it is about reasoning. And if you can learn to spot some of the less obvious terms that signify conditional statements in dense implication questions and translate them quickly, you'll save a ton of time and stress on test day. Let's start with words that indicate a sufficient term. Yes, the word if is pretty common, but words like all, any, and every also tell you that what you're looking at is enough to lead to a necessary result. Let's say we're working with the conditional statement, if you're driving legally, then you have a driver's license. We can restate this without using the words if and then by saying things like anyone driving legally has a license, or every legal driver is licensed to do so. We can even change the syntax of the sentence without ruining the relationship. You must have a driver's license if you want to drive legally. Notice how the phrase if you want to drive legally appears at the end of the sentence, but it's still our if, so it's still sufficient. On the other side of the arrow, there are a lot of sneaky, unassuming words that mean then. Words that are synonymous with requirement, like must, need, have to, and so on. All tell us that the thing required is the necessary term. Check out these statements. Drivers must have a license. A license is required to drive legally. You have to obtain a license if you want to drive. All of these label the license as the requirement, so it's our then. There are a few especially tricky words that you might encounter in tough diagrammable questions. The word only, for example, also signifies a necessary condition, so it goes after the arrow in your diagram. We can add only people who have a license can drive legally to our list of logically equivalent phrases. When you see the word only, ask yourself, only what? The answer to that question is your necessary condition. Only what? Only people who have a license. License is the then. By the way, the phrase only if still means only. You can drive legally only if you have a license. Don't be fooled by the if there. The only takes precedence. In fact, the only time the word only doesn't mean then is when the sentence starts with the phrase the only, just like this one. The only people who are allowed to drive are the ones who have a license. Hopefully it's intuitive that this sentence is the same as the others we've been talking about, but we want to make sure that we can translate the only correctly as a sufficient term in the intuition-free land of the LSAT. I know this is a lot, but when you clicked on this module, you signed up for some noodly discussion on conditionals. So you may be wondering, all right, how do I practice this? This is a case where LSAT flashcards might actually be a good idea. Write the statement you're translating on the front and the diagrammed conditional on the back and drill them until you can recognize them in context and diagram them effortlessly. And let's face it, you're going to be bombarded with conditional statements all the time in everyday life. Whenever you hear one, translate it in your head and think about what the contrapositive would be. Or do it out loud. You'll be a hit at parties. So far, we've looked at some sneaky ways conditional statements might pop up in implication stimuli. But often a question is tough because it combines more straightforward if-thens in complicated ways. You're going to want to be really solid on these, so it's never a bad idea to go back and review the previous modules on conditional statements until you can translate them in your sleep. Of particular importance to our ability to deal with tough implication questions is the use of conjunction and disjunction to make inferences. So, even if you feel like you've got the basics down, give those videos a rewatch. With review and practice, both in the context of LSAT questions and isolated translation drills, you'll actually learn to enjoy seeing conditionals in a stimulus.